Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Professor Brady here. Welcome to the mess. It's a pretty crazy situation dealing with all these random miscellaneous knickknacks I got in here. But I had to make a video because, I'm gonna stop rattling around with that now. It's probably not good for audio quality. The Ahsoka series concluded a few weeks ago now, probably, and has left the Star Wars community divided yet again. And to preface this, because I'm going to be talking about the Ahsoka series, by the way, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it yet, go watch it. Not saying I love it, not saying I hate it. I'm going to tell you what I think of it in this video. To preface this discussion, I was a huge fan of the Clone Wars animated show. Not so much the animated movie, but the animated show. And I was sort of a somewhat moderate fan of Star Wars Rebels. I didn't get on so much with the entire vibe of that show, but I did watch it, and it was okay. It wasn't my favorite Star Wars, wasn't my least favorite, it was okay. But my background in the animated series had me quite excited for the Star Wars Ahsoka series. I loved the characters from the Clone Wars, and I was really hoping it would draw from that, especially in the tone of the overall show, the kind of quick wittiness, but also serious at times, because we are looking at massive galactic political conflict, massive stakes for this world that we've grown to love so much. And when I look at Star Wars, I sort of look at it like grand political fantasy or grand political space opera, because something I was really interested in, this is not necessarily a very popular opinion, but I was always interested in the sort of geopolitical or galactic political plots and themes that the creators often touched on. The Trade Federation, the galactic conquest, rebellion, the finances of it all, the realities of warfare in this special world. But I don't want to start this review off negative in making it sound like I really hated the show. There were some good things, and that's what I'm going to get into first is the good things I liked about the show, what I thought was worth watching, what I thought made it good. But I gotta say, there was also a lot that frustrated me with it as an old fan of Star Wars. And time again, I watch these new Star Wars shows, I watch these new Star Wars movies, and I can't get into the new direction. Most of the time, it feels like this new direction is grim and drab and dreary and wide desert-scape pans and vast nothingness. And this is a little side note, but the excitement of first watching A New Hope years ago can be summed up perfectly in the Mos Eisley scenes near the beginning of the film. Even though the beginning of the movie took place in this dreary, drab desert-scape, we still got to see a bustling town full of diversity and color and language, and it was built on a real world. There was real people, there was real alien culture, there was language, there was nuance. It was really something to behold even in the midst of a desert nothingness. When I watch things like this new Ahsoka series, where's the world building? What world has been built for us? How can we believe this is a true reality when we hardly even see anybody? Still though, I'm excited for what we're heading towards. That is Filoni's Heir to the Empire film that would most likely mold all these loose threads like Mandalorian, Ahsoka, Boba Fett, etc. together into a galaxy or universe, because we are traversing to different galaxies now, into a universe-wide event, which I am super excited for. It's like the Infinity War of Star Wars. But I just wish that the writers on the Ahsoka show would have done more to make this series stand on its own 2 feet. Tell a real story, have a meaningful plot, make it worth watching. But anyway, like I promised, I'm gonna start off positive, what I loved about the show, why I think you should watch it, and first off, the best part of the show for me, by far, was Ray Stevenson's Baylan Skoll character. Now, he was so interesting and powerful. They didn't give him the best lines and the best dialogue and the best storyline, but honestly, he's really the character that had the most prominent motivation out of any of them. And since he was a new character that we hadn't previously met before, the writers actually led us through why he's motivated and gave us a reason to care. Like he wanted to travel to this new galaxy in search of a connection with the more primal force. And of course we see the teaser to the Mortis gods at the end of the series. He wants to restore the force to what it should be before the corrupt Jedi Sith empires. We move past the paradigm that is good and evil, Jedi and Sith, and we look at a more diverse magic system. We look at a more diverse religion in this world. And that's why I liked the Balin character. I thought he was very, very interesting, and I was always hoping for more of him. And in the end, of course, I just didn't get enough. But the character passed away. I can't blame the writers for having to tone down his part in the series when he's passed away, of course. Next, this one's kind of controversial, but I found Rosario Dawson's portrayal of Ahsoka pretty good. It wasn't perfect. She seemed a bit wooden to me, a bit stiff, not like the character in the Clone Wars. And when I get to my negative gripes of the show, I'm going to mention more on this. But when I went into this, it was hard to imagine being able to connect with a cartoon character from the unique animation style of the Clone Wars in live action format, but they pulled it off. And it's sort of like the same situation between Obi-Wan Kenobi. I mean, you look at Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Clone Wars and in the live action series, they're not exactly the same. They don't look the same. They don't even sound exactly the same, but it's believable for me that they're the same character. It's a different portrayal. However, it's the same person, and I got that feeling from Ahsoka too. I did believe that this was Ahsoka, but there was room for improvement. She did a good job acting like the cartoon character, but the writers that were in charge of her dialogue definitely fell short on giving her anything important or meaningful to say. In fact, I can hardly remember what she said, because in some ways there was no reason for her to even be in this show. We don't know her motivation. She's so dead set on stopping Thrawn. Why? More on that later, maybe. I loved Hayden Christensen's return as Anakin Skywalker, even though it wasn't necessarily clear to me as to his position in reality. I found him to really bring the character back to life after all these years, and even the Clone Wars iteration of Anakin Skywalker, which was probably my favorite part of it, seeing him in his Clone Wars armor, seeing him interact with the clones, interact with young Ahsoka. It was magical for me. By far the best episode of the series. And if you're going to go back and rewatch one episode, let it be that, because that was absolutely magnificent. It made the series worth watching. I was a little confused when when Anakin was switching between his light side and his dark side auras, because we've only ever known Force ghosts to be manifested from a Jedi's extensive devotion from the Force. There are no Sith Force ghosts. So in this episode, he was switching sort of from his light side persona to his dark side persona, which sort of made me lean towards believing that this was in Ahsoka's head as she was in a near-death experience. However, there's room for interpretation, and Filoni has said that. They purposely didn't give you all the facts, because it's for you to decide how you want to take it. Also, I was really intrigued and impressed by all the mystical and magical additions to the Star Wars universe we got in this series, and some of the other series as of late. But we're not just talking about the Force anymore. We're talking about dark magic, necromancy, sorcery, cloning, and witchcraft. All these new magical powers, and they make this universe much more nuanced than before. It's not just your typical good guy, bad guy. There are other forces at play, and that is special to see, and it's also interesting to see how Force users in the world interact with these new powers that they probably weren't necessarily trained to go against in the Jedi Temple, because the Jedi had a very narrow view of the universe, good and evil. Balance. Well, balancing two things was easy, but what about when we're balancing all these different powers and principalities. The final duel between Morgan Elsbeth and Ahsoka was really nice, choreographed nice, and interesting to see. And in fact, my final thing I want to really praise about the show is that the show looked really, really good. Like movie quality. The filmmaking was nice, the CGI was impressive, but overall, the landscapes did look very dull and drab and dreary and gray and beige and kind of boring to watch. But man, they did a good job making this vast nothingness look good. So I want to kind of talk about my general complaints about the series, because all things need balance. But without being necessarily a fan of Rebels, and I include myself in this category, the series won't really hit you emotionally because it literally starts in the middle of a storyline. In fact, when I was watching it, I didn't even remember Morgan Elsbeth was in The Mandalorian, by the way, until after I finished the Ahsoka series. I literally didn't realize I've ever seen her before. That's how forgettable she was to me. And that's pretty sad, but I wasn't a huge fan of her character. And Ahsoka's personality now is very different from how I perceived her in the animated shows. She's in this new universe. She's so in this new universe, she's so quiet and stoic. And maybe this is the natural progression of her growing older. I don't know, but it just feels so disconnected to me. The young Ahsoka in that Anakin Skywalker episode I was talking about felt much truer to the character, and she glowed when she portrayed her. It really felt like I was watching a live-action Clone Wars. But the character as I understand her, she's not this kind of quiet, wooden, rigid person that she's grown to be. Maybe that is what she grew into, but we didn't see the in-between, so there's a big disconnect for me in watching that as a fan of the animated shows. And I don't really understand where Ahsoka stands here. I thought she wasn't a Jedi anymore, but she's literally doing everything a Jedi would be doing, including training a Padawan. How is she training a Padawan to be a Jedi? By the way, the Padawan, Sabine, that literally has no inclination or talent to the Force until the final episode where she's able to fulfill the cliche of pulling her lightsaber to herself. That's the extent of her skill. If Ahsoka's going to be a Jedi again, why isn't she just on that other planet helping Luke rebuild the Jedi Temple or whatever he was doing? And if Thrawn is such a terrifying force to the universe that could destroy the stability of the galaxy, as they make him out to be, why doesn't Ahsoka just get Luke Skywalker to come help her instead of her band of riff-raff friends from Rebels? One of them being Harrison Dula, a general in the New Republic that literally seems to have zero responsibilities. What is she doing all the time in this series? Why is she bringing her son into dangerous space battles? Why is her son with her when she's going up against witches and zombies and Force users? It seems like she's the most irresponsible parent ever. Another thing I didn't so much like was the zombie stormtroopers. It felt pretty dumb to me, but I guess I'm just over the undead zombie trope in fantasy. And I gotta say, I hated Sabine. So bad I wish Ahsoka would have just killed her so that she wouldn't have been able to give the map to the bad guys, go to this alternate universe, and damn the future of the entire galaxy, giving rise to the First Order, killing Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, Kylo Ren. I can't even fathom why Ahsoka sees her as even close to a viable option to train as a Jedi Knight. That's something that makes zero sense to me, and I didn't like her in this show especially. I wasn't a huge fan of her in Rebels either, but at least in that show, she was somewhat likable. In this show, she is just... I wanted her dead from the start. Shameful for me to say that, but it's true. Overall, the show was okay, worth watching if you're a fan of Star Wars, but don't expect anything absolutely remarkable. For me personally, the Clone Wars animated show was really the last piece of true Star Wars material that felt connected to the original universe for me. And I keep hoping time and time again as all these new series and productions come out that they'll bring me back to that passion that I have for this world. But they keep straying further and further from George Lucas's world building that really made me a fan in the first place. But like I always say, don't take my word for it. Watch it yourself, make your own decision, and feel free to comment down below how you feel about it so we could discuss these things. Are you excited for this upcoming Heir to the Empire film? How do you feel about the future of Star Wars in general? Is there any hope at this point of bringing us back to Lucas's original vision? And what needs to be done to achieve that? Anyway, just a quick little video telling you how I felt about the show. Thanks for watching. Until next time, bye.